Perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause should be understood by everyone, whatever age or gender, because this is the time that women need support the most. I went through premature menopause at the age of 36. This was in 1986 when menopause was hardly spoken about and women were expected to deal with this on their own. To understand what happens to us in middle age, we need to get a clearer picture of what happens during puberty. Our body prepares for menstruation 4 years prior to when our first period starts, and this is usually around 10 years of age. Most women go through a similar transition. They start with perimenopause around their late 40s, and then it carries on to their mid 50s when periods finally stop. We are adjusting to changes in our body shape, internal and external organs, but in most cases, it's the psychological repercussions that are hard to control. We are moody and irritable. We have outward expressions of our inner conflicts and despair and anger. It's a time of hormonal turbulence. I read this in a book that was hidden in my mother's cupboard, and this was not about adolescence. The time of hormonal turbulence was about the menopause. This was in a chapter called Not the End of Life. I was 22 and I read that hot flushes, low libido, weakened bones that would lead to osteoporosis, deep psychological conflicts, and again frustrations. Now, why did my mother not tell me about this? Perhaps she thought I was too young to understand, but I didn't even think to ask her because this book terrified me. I put it away and never thought about it. I didn't know that many years later, this book actually saved my life. It's 1986. I was 36 years old. And just after I'd given birth to Sam, my periods got less. I was oblivious to any other signs apart from natural occurrences after pregnancy. I noticed hormonal levels dropped after giving birth because they are very high during pregnancy. But as they got more and more infrequent, I lost control of my emotions, and physically, I had started losing weight. My hair became very brittle and dry. I was dropping things frequently. I had heart palpitations. I couldn't sleep very well. Everything made me angry. I was not sure why this was happening. A visit to the GP didn't come up with anything that made sense. It was perhaps postnatal depression or a nervous breakdown. They used that in the old days instead of saying you have mental health problems. Tranquilizers did not help me. I stopped taking them. I then asked my GP to give me more tests. So I had thyroid tests, liver function tests, I had an ECG, I had x rays of my lungs. Nothing showed up positive. Everything was fine. My blood tests were fine. Thankfully, my husband and his dad cooked for us so we didn't starve. Now, this was going on for 2 years. And the last straw was after I had my last test results, my last blood test results, and they were negative. I remember one night, it was very late. I sat on the floor and started crying because I was in complete despair. What was wrong with me? And on the floor, or maybe it's a good place to be if you wanted to collect your thoughts, perhaps, I thought about that book that I read, A Time of Hormonal Turbulence, stuck in my head. And that book further explained that our follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH, is trying to get my ovaries to work so I could menstruate. But somehow it wasn't working. The next day, I went to my doctor and wanted a test to test my hormone levels, especially FSH. So he looked at me and said, well, if you think it's important, I don't think you are going through menopause, but we'll do the test. So you see, you need to take control sometimes. Others may not know what you are feeling and what is best for you. Even doctors don't know. Well, the results were there. My FSH and adrenal glands and hormones were overproducing, trying very hard for me to menstruate, but nothing was happening. And that explained my frazzled nerves, and that explained my high heart rate. It then made sense. So, in some ways, I was relieved. I didn't know whether this was actually menopause or maybe a sign that some things were not working right. The next visit I had was to a specialist, a gynecologist. And this is how he told me, sat like that. Well, Shirley, you're going through menopause. You will not have any more children. The only thing I can suggest for you is to go on estrogen because your bones will get very brittle and you will suffer from osteoporosis if you don't get estrogen. And I was sitting on the opposite side thinking, what a cruel bastard. He didn't even hold my hand. Shirley, try not to get upset, but this is the result. All right, I took it. I left. I went into the park, which was near the hospital, and I sat there and cried. And I said, well, if this is how it is, I'll have to deal with it. I took the prescription to the chemist and I started on estrogen. And this is how I regained the life I had lost for nearly 2 years.